Good afternoon from the KUOW newsroom. This is Seattle Now. I'm Paige Browning with a roundup of today's top stories. It's Tuesday, February 17th. Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson gave her first State of the City speech today. Politics reporter Scott Greenstone was there.
Wilson is facing her first tough choice as mayor. Her supporters are pushing her to stop the expansion of police cameras in Capitol Hill and around Garfield High and the stadiums. Wilson didn't say whether she'd do that during her speech.
I continue to have the concerns that I expressed during the campaign about data security and how surveillance cameras could be abused to target vulnerable communities. And I have also been moved by what I've heard from families and communities impacted by gun violence. I understand how CCTV cameras have been a useful tool to solve crimes.
Immigrant rights advocates worry the cameras could be accessed by the feds, but some businesses and parents at Rainier Beach High School, which lost 2 students to a shooting in January, want more cameras installed. Wilson didn't give a timeline for her decision. Scott Greenstone, KUOW News.
Over in the attorney's office, Seattle City Attorney Erica Evans says she's ended a years-old feud. This feud was between her predecessor, Ann Davison, and a municipal court judge, Pooja Vedati. Former city attorney Davison disqualified Vedati from hearing criminal cases. She said at the time that Vedati could not be fair and impartial, but Judge Vedati denied those allegations. Now, new city attorney Erica Evans has ended that practice, calling it misguided. And Evans says her office will only seek to disqualify judges when prosecutors believe they won't get a fair hearing. A lot's happening in the legislature because today was an important cutoff date. So here are a few bills we're watching that are still alive. The so-called millionaires tax passed the state Senate yesterday. It would levy a 9.9% tax on any income over $1 million. Democratic State Senator Vandana Slatter from Bellevue says she's even heard from wealthy constituents saying it is necessary.
There's the gap between those who are thriving and those who are struggling, and it's growing wider every day, and I see it in my district between the haves and the have-nots.
Republicans claim the tax will cause those wealthy residents to leave, and they don't believe it'll help middle-income residents either. Republican State Senator Drew McEwen is from Mason County.
How many emails do any one of our offices get talking about property taxes and my parents or my grandparents are on the verge of losing their home, or somebody else can't afford to even buy a home because of that tax burden? There's no relief in here for that.
If it's passed, most of the revenue would go to the state's general fund. The new income tax proposal now moves to the House. Speaking of the House, representatives have passed a bill that would require Washington businesses to warn workers of imminent immigration crackdowns. House Bill 2105 was proposed by State Attorney General Nick Brown. It requires employers to inform their workers of an ICE arrival within 72 hours of getting notice from federal authorities. Republicans oppose the measure, saying it puts businesses in between the feds and the state government. The bill now goes to the state Senate. And we're eyeing a bill about roadway emergencies. Drivers who go around emergency barricades in Washington, such as a closed road due to flooding, could soon lose their license. Monday, the State House approved a bill that creates a new offense called reckless interference with emergency operations. Pierce County Republican Joshua Penner proposed the bill after hearing about the behavior of some drivers during December's record floods.
Probably on the order of 24 swiftwater rescues occur over a 4-day period. And for each swiftwater rescue, you've got a large team of first responders that have to go out to rescue the folks that end up needing rescue. And a lot of those rescues were folks that had driven around barricades.
If this passes, a driver could be charged with a misdemeanor and lose their license for a couple months. The bill now moves to the state Senate. Washington State's financial outlook might not be as bad as legislators feared. Spokane Public Radio's Owen Henderson has more on yesterday's report from the State Economic and Revenue Forecast Council.
The latest forecast predicts roughly $827 million more in revenue for the current 2-year budget than expected in November. That bump reflects the early proceeds from increased taxes lawmakers approved last year. This prediction is about $430 million more than the numbers legislators used to write the budget last spring. It doesn't erase Washington's projected multi-billion-dollar deficit, but lawmakers and Governor Bob Ferguson say this is a step in the right direction. The council's forecast also shows stronger job growth than expected in November. Washington was expected to lose about 4,300 jobs in the last 3 months of 2025. Instead, it added about 16,800. I'm Owen Henderson, reporting.
We now know the cost of December's torrential rain and flooding in Washington state. The storms caused more than $180 million in damage. That's according to Governor Bob Ferguson. The Seattle Times reports that Ferguson will now ask the Trump administration for a major disaster declaration that, if approved, would give Washington access to money from FEMA to repair a web of roads, bridges, and other public infrastructure. Ferguson says the $180 million estimate amounts to the largest storm damage in 4 decades in Washington and is likely to grow. A couple more things to note. A fun little addition's popped up on light rail displays. Estimated times for the 2 line to arrive in Seattle. Sound Transit's 2 line, which runs on the east side, won't connect to Seattle till March 28th, but the trains were running empty this weekend for testing across Lake Washington. The tests simulate service from downtown Redmond to the International District Chinatown in Seattle, and then up to Linwood. And beads and red horses can be seen throughout Seattle today because Mardi Gras and the Lunar New Year converge on the same day today. Small New Year's celebrations are already underway, but the annual festival in Seattle's Chinatown International District is still a couple weeks away. March 7th, dragon performances and dancers will celebrate in Hing-Hay Park, celebrating the Chinese Year of the Fire Horse. And for Mardi Gras, people in Columbia City may see a sidewalk parade tonight, and the Ballard Community Center is throwing a carnival. Next time on Seattle Now, the Seattle Convention Center is putting on more events than ever before, but they are still struggling to make money after spending most of their reserves during the pandemic.
Of course, all sort of forms of hospitality struggled during the pandemic, but it's hard to find an example that was hit so top to bottom as the convention center on every level.
Hear more Wednesday morning. That's all for today from the KUOW newsroom in Seattle. Our producer is back, Andy Hurst, and I'm Paige Browning. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. See you tomorrow.